Hi, and welcome to the New Stack Makers, a podcast where we talk about at-scale application development, deployment, and management. We're at Serverless Conf Austin for a day of podcasting, talking about serverless technologies, those who are using these emerging technologies, and the practitioners and vendors who are helping users to onboard and adopt serverless methodologies. Hi, I'm Benjamin Ball from the New Stack. I'm joined today by Jared Short from Trek 10. He's Director of Innovation. Thanks for joining us today. I'm really excited to talk to you.
Yeah, I'm really happy to be here and excited, and just looking forward to having some fun.
Yeah, so we're at Serverless Conference Austin, and this is the second day. The first day was workshops, and today is kind of the big first day for everyone, and pretty cool venue, and kind of excited to see some of these sessions. You're talking on day 2, correct?
I am.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
Yeah, talking about single-page applications in serverless without compromise, or at least as little as possible.
Great, so I'll make sure to come to that.
Yes.
But let's start off the talk with just a little bit about what Trek 10 is, what you guys do, and what you do there.
Yeah. So Trek 10, we're about a 3-year-old company at this point. I was one of the first employees there when we were just getting started. We're an AWS authorized consulting partner, advanced authorized consulting partner, I should say, and then one of the first serverless partners as well, serverless framework partners. I was actually one of the first people contributing back when serverless was still called JAWS.
That came up today. I actually didn't know about.
I should have worn it. I literally have the JAWS T-shirt. Like
you should have worn
literally
that.
have the T-shirt. I usually try to wear it around to these things. I might wear it tomorrow for my talk. I'll talk to Austin, see what he thinks about that. But I always try to bug him, bring back the OG brand, right?
Yeah, actually, I come up at the workshops the other day, and I was like, I didn't know that this was called something else before.
It was.
But
It was.
The more you know.
Yeah, apparently there's some movie or something called JAWS.
Yeah, a little bit. Maybe some branding issues there.
But anyways, what we do is we're a consulting partner, and we really help companies adopt kind of the serverless mindset and try to think how they can apply this event-driven paradigm to their companies, to their departments, and spread it across their company, not just for just one-off apps, but how do we really adopt it across the organizations? And we've had great success with that, all the way from actually small startups have talked with us. We've seen great success there, up to like Fortune 500s have been having really great success, and they had one great project go, and now they're pushing that out to more people. So it's just been, ever since we adopted serverless ourselves and started pushing it, we've just seen massive interest across multiple different paradigms.
So it's largely consulting.
Largely consulting.
That's interesting. What we like to do, especially when we're moving into a space where we're going to start covering it more, such as serverless, we often want to talk to the consultants because it seems like you guys are the first boots on the ground for helping customers actually institute organizational change, really. Part of what I'm interested about with serverless is, and you kind of already touched on this, I don't know yet if people are just making small commitments to it and doing a single app or a single function or something, or if they're trying to actually shift their whole organization towards it already. And I'm hesitant, or I assume people might be hesitant just because we're still in the early days, I guess. But I'm kind of interested in seeing, or maybe hearing more about what kind of customers are really making that commitment, and who's kind of the best customer that you're targeting right now, or rather, what's the type of customer?
Yeah, well, I think there's actually a couple interesting things there, and one other important thing about, I guess, our company and kind of how we look at this is before serverless happened, we were traditionally just doing AWS architectures, but more importantly, we were also focusing on the 24/7 maintenance and operations of that infrastructure. So actually the first day, I found this JAWS framework and serverless and Lambda, and I started playing with it, and I realized this fundamentally changes some of the ops stuff that needs to happen, right? And we had a meeting internally once a year. We kind of go through and think about our company and where is the future of our company and helping clients and what do we want to take to them to make them operate better. And after I had discovered the serverless stuff and played with it for a little while, and we'd kind of talked with clients about it, I said, okay, this is what I think is going to be the future. It's what I think we're going to do. The bad news is I'm pretty sure I'm effectively killing like 40% of our business if we do this route, right? Like the traditional ops kind of goes away.
Yeah, actually, can you expand on that? Because this is something I asked recently where my question was, does this kill off operations? Is it just removing some of the behaviors? Is it actually removing the need for some of the staff, period? But obviously, there's still a need for ops, even with serverless. So, what does it change in terms of how many?
Yeah. So it's something that we've struggled with a little bit, and we've certainly found that it does not remove the need for ops entirely. It changes the ops game to some extent. You can focus on higher value targets inside of your ops instead of responding to like auto scaling needs or big spikes in traffic. You can have ops focus a little bit more on actual tuning and optimizations at like your data layer, or more effectively responding to even like individual user errors or things like that. And it's figuring out how to get optics into that as part of your ops, and then figuring out how you respond at kind of that more focused level is what we've really seen. So we haven't replaced ops. We've just been able to focus it and get higher value out of it, is what I would say. We're not patching servers or anything like that. Rather, we're patching code, I guess is one way to put it.
So when you're working with these customers, are you working largely with their operations team?
Yeah, that's a good question. Not typically, actually. So we do have some clients that have some ops folks, but it's so new yet that we're still kind of in that training phase with a lot of our clients and helping their teams understand what's going on. So since we're kind of like this holistic approach where we'll help build the actual serverless applications and the architecture, and then we'll help operationalize it and we'll help train on it, we've still had a fair amount of our clients actually just stick with us and just say, well, you did a great job building this, and quite frankly, our teams have no idea how to manage this. So we kind of try to work with them to get those playbooks in place or things like that, where maybe they can handle some of the easier stuff, but certainly they're still with us in terms of the more advanced operations.
So it's that style of consulting where you're kind of creating long-term customers who are treating you like I don't want to say operations as a service, but sort of they're keeping you on and you're maintaining and actually improving and helping you grow. As you say, training, I guess, would be the primary focus here.
Yeah.
Is this something where you are, I think you said you've been around for 3 years, or Trek 10's
Something
been
like
around
that,
3 years?
yeah.
Is what's changing recently? Is serverless kind of, this is maybe a vague question, but basically,
this whole space is vague.
Are you kind of, really, what space isn't vague for us? But basically, what I'm wondering is, are you seeing the community around serverless change to the point where you're having customers who are actually coming to you with this in mind more specifically? Basically, are you seeing your customers' needs change as the space grows?
This is actually a really good question, and something I like to kind of war game out with people or try to figure out with people, because I have no idea why this happens or happened. But we skipped Docker. So I was actually myself personally was one of the first like Docker authorized consulting partners like in the world. I went to like the first official Docker authorized consulting training, whatever, and that was like briefly after you were AWS authorized consulting partners. And so and then probably 6 months later, after that, we did 1 or 2 bigger Docker projects. They went well, they worked. And then like 6 months after that happened, this whole JAWS serverless platform stuff started existing. And we like enterprises skipped Docker, and they just came to us and started talking. Like, they're like, we heard about serverless, what is it? We're like, what happened to Docker? Like there's containers and like all these container engines and everything was all the rage, and there's gone. Like
So that's really interesting to me because I never actually heard anyone say that this has been the case for them.
Yeah.
But we wondered if that is out there. Obviously, we have sort of made our bread and butter on the container ecosystem, and obviously we're expanding into serverless.
Yep.
We're interested in the connections and if people are going from containers to serverless
Yeah.
or making them work together.
I think-
but skipping it entirely is interesting.
Yeah.
But it doesn't surprise me, I guess.
Yeah, so I guess what it ends up being is containers is just the wrong abstraction for the developer. The peak or the curve for Docker on my local machine is quite easy. Docker's made that very easy. You can install some apps, run it, cool, it works, right? And then getting to production is like just this massive spike. It's extremely hard to get like in a hardened, effective container platform like actually running. You have Google Container Engine or ECS or things like that, but operationalizing those is very, very difficult. And then you have like Lambda or serverless or things like that, where effectively operationalizing it and production hardening it's abstracted away from the developer, right? There's containers under it, and I think that's the right abstraction is if you can just leverage those containers you just push your code and everything else is just handled for you, right? That ends up being the right abstraction so far.
Yeah, it's really interesting to me. I'm sort of wondering if we're going to hear this from other people at this conference. I'm definitely going to ask this question now because of this. I get where you're coming from. I mean, that does make sense to me. Is serverless, the opportunities there just that much easier to get into production environments? Is it necessarily an easier learning curve, or is it just a different focus entirely?
Yeah, I think it's easier for developers to some extent, but it's just certainly something we've seen, and I do want to be clear, we're obviously self-selecting for people that want serverless, because we're much heavier on our serverless mind share and things like that, and where we are out there, because we ourselves kind of skip Docker. Right?
Yeah, I don't think that needs to be said. We're at serverless conference. I think we're allowed.
So a lot of
here.
our clients certainly self-select, but even in those conversations, we've had folks come to us talking about Docker, and then we'll mention serverless or that kind of approach, and they'll look at it and think about it and say, yeah, this is actually what we wanted, right? So
for those big customers, for the enterprise customers, have you had anyone, not anyone necessarily, has it been a hard sell to pitch serverless where some of these organizations may not even know what that is or have heard that this is maybe a new or emerging space and are hesitant to invest in it? Or
yeah, so there's still that education gap, right? There's still that need for educating to some extent. We don't usually actually get a lot of pushback, and if we do, it's sometimes is well-placed pushback. So sometimes there is things that just don't work well for serverless, like really like video transcoding or things like that, or video streaming platforms. It doesn't work great in serverless to some extent.
that's interesting because a Cloud Guru has a...
I should rephrase that. So a Cloud Guru is certainly like video streaming platform. I meant it more as like you're doing like overlays on videos,
Sure.
real-time streaming overlays.
I'm interested. Is there any other? Obviously, serverless is not perfect and has things that it needs to grow and mature on. Are there other kind of pain points, either for customers or just from your perspective, where you're going to need to, where the space needs to mature around solutions? And honestly, you can hit on whatever you want here. I realize this is kind of a vague, very open.
Yeah. So what's interesting is we always like to joke, and this was actually true up until probably about 3 or 4 months ago, but every serverless project that we were part of and built ended up having servers. Just because there was like limitations of the platforms, right? So one good example is you could not upload like binary information to Lambda 3 API Gateway until recently. And so we had a client that needed to upload images and do so with some legacy systems, and there's just no way to get those legacy systems to talk through the API gateway to do what we needed, right? So we had to like literally build like a proxy, we call it, and then that proxy would just take in that legacy information and then leverage the serverless APIs, right? So we ended up with servers.
That's not too surprising, right?
No.
I feel like that's almost been the butt of a lot of people's jokes here already, and we're not even to noon yet of the first day. So, is that problematic, or is it just unexpected, or?
I don't think it's problematic or unexpected. It's just a fact of life, right? You're using these bleeding edge technologies, and not everything's going to work. And so it was kind of brought up in the keynote, right? Like, we're willing to duct tape our way around this stuff to get as much benefit as we possibly can out of the serverless paradigm. And I'll duct tape around whatever I have to get there.
Yeah, whenever we move into a new space from the new stack perspective of looking to analyze a technology that we're still growing our understanding of. For example, with Docker, with containers, we're still very open about the very real issues that people are still having with certain areas. So when we come into a space like serverless, I'm expecting there to be issues.
Yep.
I would assume that customers know that it's not ever going to be,
Yep.
well, it's not ever going to be a perfect fit for everyone, but I'm curious if there's any other sort of issues you're running into. Is there's a lot of tracks here about serverless and databases.
Yes.
I wondered if data storage was a component of any, I guess, pain points, or that, because it seems like that's something people are focused on talking about.
Yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily pain points. It's just we have this great technology, this massively scalable system. I can take hundreds and thousands and tens of thousands of requests per second, and if I have a database that can't take that, it's no good to me, right? So you have the NoSQL approach, DynamoDB, or the newer FaunaDB stuff, right? I think FaunaDB is probably one of the more recent ones, and certainly one of the better approaches recently. But even things like DynamoDB has, we actually wrote and open sourced a DynamoDB autoscaling project. Because DynamoDB does not autoscale, right? You have to somehow have this precognition of how much traffic is going to be coming to your site. And if you're going to get this massive spike, your Lambda functions will work, and they will scale, but your DynamoDB, you might just overwhelm it, or you massively over-provision, and then you can handle it, but you're paying tons of money just to have that possibility covered. So, like I said, we duct taped our way around it, right? Like, we open sourced this DynamoDB autoscaling project simply because we had a client that had the classic autoscaling need of, at noon, they're getting like 3 million plus requests an hour, and at nighttime, it's like 100,000 requests an hour or something like that. So why should they be paying all of that money when they shouldn't need to? And so just things like that where even Amazon hasn't fixed it yet, or said, oh yeah, we should probably just auto scale and give you that scale elastic capacity in what is the canonical serverless database of DynamoDB. They just don't handle it.
Yeah, it's interesting. When we first started covering containers, actually, walk that back, we always talk about scaling. Even the new stack moniker is sort of talking about app development at scale. Serverless seems to have a lot of the same focus of bringing a system to enormous scale. And I brought up the database because so often it seems like you have a component that can scale and you focus on scaling it, but you're leaving something behind.
Sure.
So that was part of the reason why I asked.
Yeah. So I guess the best response I have to that is the way I really classify serverless and my approach to serverless is that I'll leverage tools and utilities where I don't have to over provision anything, and I only pay for what I need at the time I'm using it. Mm-hmm. But I have the painless path to auto scaling or scaling as needed, right? So if one of our favorite clients one time told us when we were presenting some features and options, actually as part of Amazon, we said, well, there is this one problem where if you need like a specific IP address on CloudFront, it's like a checkbox, and you have to like hit a button, and it could cost you $600. And his response was, if it's just a checkbox and money, that's fine, right? And so to me, that's the serverless approach. If it's just a checkbox and money, like who cares? That's easy. If that's all I have to do to make sure my service keeps working, I'm in. So that's the serverless approach to me, and that's the paradigm kind of in a nutshell.
Awesome. Well, before we wrap up the conversation, is there anything that's coming up? I don't want to say on a product roadmap. Is there anything that you guys are focused on in the near future at Trek 10?
Yeah, so it's actually something that's been mentioned a couple of times here today already, but hasn't been huge recently. But this idea of like the Nordstrom guys talk about it a lot, the unified or central log system, and very much just event streaming as your communication layer. Is Kafka or Kinesis or things like that, and reading off of those event streams. I think that's the next big play.
Awesome. Actually, that validates some of the things that we're looking to find out here. Is how does the data streaming ecosystem fit into serverless?
Yep, I think that's really the next big thing, and I think that's going to be the next thing that we all try to figure out best practices out around.
Awesome. Well, maybe we'll do another podcast about that when that gets figured out a little more.
Yeah, for sure.
But thanks for joining me today.
Of course. It was my pleasure.
Great conversation, and I look forward to learning more about Trek 10, and hopefully I'll see you again around the conference.
Yeah, of course. All right. Thank you.
Thanks. Listen to more episodes of the NewStack Makers at thenewstack.io/podcasts. Also, please rate and review us on iTunes, like us on YouTube, and follow us on SoundCloud. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.